Hi guys.
Hey.
Welcome to our second episode of our yet to be named un-TV show. I just wanted to get something off my chest because the last episode that we shot, I was super insecure about the fact that I did not have a tooth in my mouth right here. So for this episode, I put in my little fake tooth. And I'm telling you this because I find so often, like, especially on these kinds of platforms, we often sort of idealize the people we're watching and we feel separate from them. So not to say like, this is going to like help you understand who I am as a person, but I wanted to share that made me super insecure. And I felt like the choice to put this thing in my mouth that would help me be able to smile more freely gives me somewhat of a speech impediment. So
Really
I have yet to determine, and we'll have to wait until episode 3 to determine if I was more insecure in this episode or in the previous episode.
We'll debrief.
Okay, I want to explain why I'm missing a tooth because I think it's interesting. This is something that happened this week that I thought was really amazing and sort of reminded me that everything in life is so interconnected. Everything we do affects, something else. Mm-hmm. So I have Lyme disease, as you know, and over the past 4 or 5 years, I've really had so many health issues. And one of those health issues, which if you do have Lyme disease and you've been struggling with it like I have, is your teeth fall out. And what I learned this week is it's not totally random. So I've had the 2 same teeth on either side sort of just fall out. It was really interesting because my dentist is also, he sort of takes a naturopathic approach to his work. And he told me that the meridian, which is the energy line that goes from this tooth, is connected to your gallbladder, which I thought was really interesting because I have a lot of digestive issues.
Right.
So without getting into too much detail, that sort of blew my mind. And I was like, of course, why did I not think that, that was an indication of something else and not just a result of something.
Yeah.
It wasn't like someone punched me in the face and my tooth fell out. The teeth fell out by themselves and it's directly connected to something inside my body that needs attention.
Yeah.
It's just, and then, for me, I lie in bed and I think, wow, so that's connected to that. And then it just shows you that everything in our bodies, in life, has a ripple effect. It's cause and effect, and everything is connected. So,
and we're kind of taught to think of these things in isolation. I think Western medicine is really connecting those dots for us in a way that's useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's hard to navigate through, through any system, I guess, but through a system when you're looking at the symptom, symptom.
Yeah.
Not really the cause or the root.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So I'm going to, needless to say, look into my gallbladder.
Yeah.
And it's going to be all about my gallbladder.
Well, you can update us on
this
that.
Week, yes.
And maybe I was just thinking that one of the things that we don't have in this topic jar is a discussion on health.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll put that into the mix at some point because I feel like you've been on this really interesting journey learning about your body and like having this whole new relationship with your body on account of Lyme disease, just sending you, looking for solutions and possibilities. And I think it's worth sharing some of those stories,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we do eventually, if we do introduce food in some way, that's something that you and I have connected on so often, when we travel or even here in Barrie.
We like food.
Like food, but also have so many things we can't eat. And, you guys especially finding new ways of, creating delicious meals around, certain health issues.
Yeah. Well, and I think because, we're in these lines of work and that require us to sort of push through all sorts of things and, sleeplessness and illness and just, do things to our bodies that maybe aren't particularly healthy. We're always trying to find ways to take care of ourselves and maintain.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's worth talking about diet. And we've been talking a lot in our circles about decolonizing our diet.
That's a huge topic for us, now that I think
we
about
talk
it.
about
Oh
it
my
all the
gosh,
time.
that's really weird that it didn't make it in. Do you have any insecurities?
Oh, God. Yeah, of course I do. Something that we're in the studio recording right now. So, of course, this is like a microscope on the things that you care most about and the things you're most insecure about. So I actually have, little mental breakdowns all the time in the studio. They're very internal. I don't let anyone know that they're happening, but I have to like really hear myself and really examine what I'm doing well or not doing well and what my limitations are, and coming up against your limitations. Because sometimes what I hear in my head isn't something that I can do, and or often. So I find that it's a little bit heartbreaking when I can't fully express an idea the way that I imagine it, and then just like coming to this place of acceptance in that this is what I have to offer and this is my instrument and these are my gifts and I need to appreciate them and celebrate them and accept my limitations, So yeah, studio work. It's fun. It is really fun, but it's scary.
I can't imagine.
Well, I mean,
that's a world I actually don't know.
It must be similar to acting, though.
I guess so, but for what I do as an actor is mostly perform other people's work. Like I'm not going into a studio and, maybe as a writer I do that, but I have the solitude in my office. I write, and then other people, critique it, tell me it's garbage or not. But yeah, I guess I've often thought about that. Do I have the right to call myself an artist? Because I'm no longer a dancer who choreographs pieces, and I don't really paint that much these days, and I write, but do I even have the right? Because I live with an artist and I'm friends with artists, I'm related to artists who go in and just spill your gut, everything.
But I mean, we've talked about this before, and I'm always a little shocked when you say that, because you're so clearly an artist to me, without question. I don't break that. I've never questioned it. Even when you've brought it up, I've been like, why? Why question the act of creation? That's artists.
Yeah,
being an
no,
artist.
you're right.
And that's what you're focused on. You're creative. You're creating things. I
think it goes back to what you said about the voice in your head, right? Mm-hmm. It's it's that not feeling worthy kind of, thing. Mm-hmm. I work with so many artists, and that's part of what I love about being a producer. Someone who creates content or provides a platform. And I love bringing artists together. It's something that is just there's so much joy that comes from watching people create art. Mm-hmm. And I get to do that with my own husband and get to see that process, and maybe I'll have to look at that inside myself and change the narrative.
Yeah. I think the labels aren't that useful.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Unless they in some way help us speak to our own identity and our own calling, and sort of anchor something on these words that we use and give ourselves permission in some way to embody those things. You know what I mean? Right. Fill in the space around that and acknowledge that you are an artist. Mm-hmm. Well, and none of you who know Jennifer would say that she wasn't an artist. I don't think so.
Let us know down below.
You guys tell her what you think. For real, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But you're right. I also don't love labels. When people read your bio, and that's probably why we love the idea of doing an intro for this TV show, where I introduce you and you introduce me, because it is very uncomfortable to introduce yourself, especially when you have like a lot of jobs and you become this multi-hyphenate kind of person. And when you have to sit there and listen to someone read your bio, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, they're labels. So what I have determined about myself, really, if I was to go like back in time and I would be that person around the campfire, I would be a storyteller.
Yes.
Right? And I probably would feel compelled to still provide platforms or help other people tell their stories, but it is a storyteller kind of thing. So
storytellers are artists.
Okay.
Just saying.
And I love how I say, like, I don't like labels, but I'm going to be a storyteller.
Right.
Like, that's not a label.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to go to the...
Let's do this thing now. Can I
to
do
the
it this
bowl?
time?
You can do it.
So for those of you who didn't catch the first episode, we decided that we would choose a number of topics that were meaningful to us or that we were curious about or engaged in learning about, and put them in this beautiful pot. Do you want to talk about the pot?
Well, George Leach, who is someone everyone should know because he's really a very brilliant artist. Speaking of artists, like he does everything. He does visual art, sculpting, music, songwriting. He plays so many different instruments, actor.
Yeah.
I got to kill him once in North of 60. Sorry, George. And he made this.
Yeah.
He made this for me in...
It's beautiful.
What was the year? 2009. Yeah, so that was quite some time ago. But yeah, it's been on display for this long, and I think it's a frog. It's a frog. It's a frog. So the frog is holding the ideas, and...
Yeah, so this is the idea pot, and we decided we would draw an idea from it for each episode, topic of discussion, and I have pulled the love
card
topic, which
That's
is pretty great, actually.
It is.
I like this one.
It's very layered.
Oh, well, yeah.
Love is...
We could go in a few different directions in this conversation.
Okay, well, let's start it with defining it. Like, what is it to you? What is love?
Wow. Okay. That's a really interesting question. I mean, we could define it as a word or define how it lives in our life. And, I think that those are, love is all of the things that I think we traditionally think of it as, in terms of romantic love and in terms of our children and our families, our love for the land and love for our people and our culture.
But like when you say it,
Yeah.
what are you really saying?
Yeah. I think that we're, I know when we're talking about the 7 gifts in Anishinaabe culture, kindness is actually what's described. And what my mom says is that actually is where love lives in those 7 gifts, is in kindness. And so I've contemplated that quite a bit. But I think that it is sort of that, to me, it's the creative potential connecting to our whole beings, like our spirit and our bodies and our minds. And it is, it's a really interesting word.
It's kind of an all-encompassing word, right? But ideally, in the best case scenario, the person who is on the receiving end of your word understands it in the same way you do. Because if not, then they will not be getting it in the way you intend it.
Which is probably often the case.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. To say I love you, it's in the eye of the beholder. It's in the ear of the beholder or the heart of the beholder, right? Whoever you're saying it to will perceive it as they understand that word to be. I don't regret saying it, but I sometimes feel like I've said it without putting meaning into it. And often that comes with the people you're closest to, like your husband or your sisters or parents, because you're so used to saying it, but you want to make sure that they know it. But when you say it, what I'm trying to do is not throw it away. Like, love you.
Right.
Yeah, love you, you know? I'm trying to be more conscious about how I'm giving that, you know, word, that concept. And I think in other languages, it's probably more, it has more feeling to it.
Maybe. And maybe more words to describe.
Yeah, and maybe more words to describe the kind of love.
Yeah.
Right?
I know in Anishinaabe, when my love is Nizagadewan.
Nizagadewan.
Yeah.
Like my love.
My love. Yeah.
Nizagadewan. Nice.
Yeah. But I don't know if it is the literal translation of what we're talking about in English, and I wish that I knew that. I think it's the closest approximation.
Yeah, it probably isn't. It's probably way more complex than that, because as I understand it, our language is experiential, has, you know, a lot of connection to the environment. We should find out. If you know, tell us below.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And share the words in your language for love, because I feel like that's something worth learning about.
So the other day, my kids were actually asking me this, what is love?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how they think it's respect. They were being very linear about their answers, which is fine. But we started talking about like the feeling of feeling loved, and, you know, which is as important as loving someone or loving something. The feeling of being loved is very powerful, right? It's such good medicine. And for me, this image of a plug going into a socket where, you know, the electricity, the moment that something becomes electrified, that feeling, that moment, that connection, that, I don't even know what other word that is, but in my mind, that's how I describe love. Like, that's how you make me feel. And that's how I feel towards you. And even when I say, you know, when we talk about love on a bigger level, like putting love out to the universe, that image to me, I believe that it could really, it could, you know, reverberate and create ripple effects.
Right, because it is actually energy.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. Love as energy. That's a whole other.
Yeah.
But you talk about this a lot.
Yeah, because I think that it has, well, you know, we're all familiar with like this idea of love being a verb, you know, and that it's an animate thing, not an inanimate thing. And that, you know, I really think that there's actually spirit to it, you know, that it is an energy, a spirit that we connect to in this really pure way. Yeah. I feel like, you know, the idea of love has been really co-opted in some ways. You know, I think that there's something really simple and grounded that we lose sight of when we're thinking of all of these ideal things that love is supposed to be. And I think it's worth looking beyond that. And, you know, one of the things I was thinking about recently, just to kind of take a swift turn, I was thinking about decolonizing love so that we can reclaim this in our communities in a meaningful way. And that oppression and colonization, actually one of the key things that it does is it steals our ability to receive love. And I think that that's really profound, you know. And so in that reclaiming process that we are actively in right now, looking at how we can reclaim love for ourselves outside of all of these ideals and outside of the constraints of how we've been taught about love, and also, create that safety within ourselves that we can claim it again, because I think that, love has been, I think because of the residential school system and the 60s scoop, like that basic place where you first learn love is from your mother. And I feel like those chains have been broken, so I've been thinking about it in a really heady way lately, and love being an act of resistance, it quite literally a stand against oppression and colonization.
Yeah, that's heavy. That's heavy. Like, that gave me the shivers, first of all. And yeah, I agree that receiving love is so difficult, because it is all about being open, and being open is really scary when you've been hurt, when you've been abused. How do you be open in the face of trauma? So to be open enough to receive love is a very vulnerable place and very scary. But it is the first step in being able to unconditionally give love. And you're right, that was broken. And I feel, like so many of us are in the process of reclaiming that with our own children. And even those who choose not to have children, that in itself is also an act of reclaiming love, right? So many of us are products of that brokenness. And, I have conversations with people close to me, especially women, who directly connect that brokenness to, the ripple effects of that brokenness to the struggle to receive love.
Well, and I think like oppression and conflict diminish our capacity for trust also. And trust being such a key component of love, or healthy love. And so looking at, I think this is one of the powerful things about our ongoing conversation is, as women, rebuilding those safe spaces, where we can really amplify and support and love and share, and because those bonds between women also have been broken, and that safe space that I believe we're intended to stand in our most powerful, strong places have been completely taken from us, So, and I don't just mean in Indigenous communities. I think that women on whole don't have safe spaces, and so I think we're reclaiming these spaces as women, and reclaiming these conversations that I know make us stronger and are part of a healing journey for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is an important conversation to continue at, in your own circles, in your own environment, and even with yourself, because, to even ask yourself, or even tell yourself, I love you. I love you, despite your flaws, despite, this bad choice or that bad choice. I love you. And that's really where it begins. And that's such a scary spot to be in. And then, there are so many other layers of just that word, where I witness people in very harmful situations where they'll say, but I love her, but I love him. So it's like, where do we really truly anchor this feeling? You know, if we do anchor it in ourself, if we anchor in love as human beings, as this, will that dictate how we give it and receive it to others?
Yeah, well, and of course it will. But learning how to do that is like a whole other thing.
So if you have the answer.
If you figured this out, let us know.
Just to go back to, you know, the conversations with other women, I do think that often we project our insecurities onto other women, and therefore feel in competition or jealous, and it, you know, sort of ignites negative feelings, especially between women. And if we were able to shift that somehow to really share a loving space with women, I think really amazing things would happen.
Yeah. You know, this reclaiming process and this decolonizing process, in many ways, we're making it from scratch, right? And there are things that we can return to in our teachings and in our communities, and there are things that we need to reimagine right now. And, you know, in this whole discussion of decolonization being the work of the imagination, this is like fireworks in my head, because we have to push ourselves to think about things in a way that we never have before, and open spaces for things to happen that we don't yet know. I'm excited about that idea, and I feel like it happens in relationship. Like we can learn so much from each other, and we learn how to manifest these ideas in relationship to each other. And you know, in relationship doesn't necessarily mean in like a close, intimate friendship. It means we're sharing and we're having these conversations and building these connective threads, you know, between all of your brilliant ideas and all of the imagination collectively that's happening around who we can be together and how we can learn to reclaim these things, like that core thing of love, you know?
And if it's true that thoughts become things, then that reimagining of, you know, a future that is more anchored in love might not be that far away.
Yeah.
If we really can join forces and reimagine together. So on that note, I love you, Shona.
I love you too, babe.
I really do. I think that's probably it for us today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And join us next time for another episode of this yet to be named UnTV show.